We now enter Job, a book of suffering, integrity, and the limits of human understanding, right? Job begins very differently from Esther because in Esther, God is hidden. Events unfold politically. But in Job, God is in front and center, yet his reasons remain hidden from humans. This chapter establishes the tension of the entire book, okay? So, who is him? The story opens with a clear introduction. There was a man in the land of Uz whose name was Job. Job is described with four rare qualities: blameless, upright, feared God, and shunned evil. This matters because Job is not suffering because he is wicked. Okay, he's also extraordinarily blessed. Seven sons, 3 daughters, vast herds and servants, the greatest man among all the people of the East. Okay, Job's spiritual leadership shows in verse 5. He regularly offers sacrifices for his children, just in case they sinned in their hearts. Job is faithful in prosperity before suffering ever arrives. Okay, then the story suddenly shifts away from earth. Okay, the sons of God present themselves before the Lord, a heavenly council scene. Among them appears Satan, literally the accuser. God initiates the conversation. Have you considered my servant Job? This is shocking because God points Job out. Satan responds with accusation. Does Job fear God for nothing? The charge: Job obeys because he is blessed. Remove the blessings and his faith will collapse. So God allows a test with limits. Satan may touch Job's possessions, but not Job himself. Suffering here is not random. It is bounded by God's sovereignty. Okay? Then, the catastrophe in a single day, four messengers arrive one after another. Sabeans steal oxen and donkeys. Servants killed. Fire consumes sheep and servants. Then Chaldeans raid camels. Servants killed. Okay, a wind collapses the house. All 10 children die. No time to breathe. No time to process. Job loses wealth, security, legacy, family, all in one day. Job's reaction defines the book. He tears his robe, shaves his head, falls to the ground, and worships. He says, naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked I will depart. Okay? The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. May the name of the Lord be praised. The narrator concludes, in all this, Job did not sin or charge God with wrongdoing. Job does not understand, but he trusts. So, what are the key lessons from this chapter? First lesson is suffering is not always punishment. Job is righteous before the trial. Second lesson, there is more happening than we can see. Earthly pain intersects with heavenly purposes. Third lesson, God sets limits on suffering. Satan cannot act freely. Fourth lesson, loss can be sudden and overwhelming. Faith is tested without warning. Fifth lesson, worship can coexist with grief. Job mourns deeply and worships honestly. In summary, this chapter introduces Job, a righteous and prosperous man whose faith is challenged in heavenly confrontation between God and Satan. God permits Satan to test Job's integrity by taking away his possessions and children, but not his life. In a single devastating day, Job loses everything. Yet instead of cursing God, Job responds with humility, grief, and worship, affirming God's sovereignty. The chapter establishes the book's central question: will faith endure when blessings disappear?